I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Joel Sands. It's my buddy Patrick McCray. It's my buddy Gordon Dymowski. We're here to review and talk about the private life of Sherlock Holmes. Uh, Directed by Billy Wilder, a very, very famous, competent director, really talented director. Um, this
He
movie,
is competent. He is
Yeah, yeah,
competent.
yeah,
I've
yeah,
never
yeah.
heard him described that way.
Yeah, you know that. Yeah, proof that that both Double Indemnity and like the Double Indemnity, Some Like It Hot, and
Sunset
Sunset
Boulevard,
Boulevard were not flukes at
The
all.
Apartment,
Yeah,
The Long
Joel,
Weekend,
you are the master of understatement.
Sabrina,
well,
Fedora.
I heard there was an interview. Um, I think it was Jack Lemmon who gave an audio interview about Billy Wilder about how when Billy Wilder handed you a script, you did not ask for it to be changed because the script was already so good.
Billy Wilder. Hey, I mean, he's an incredible director. I mean, I'm a guy who loves to ad lib and add things, and it's like, thanks, Billy. I don't have to. There's literally nothing I can come up with that would improve on a Wilder line or a Wilder moment. Um, his wordplay is dazzling, and his plot structure and everything else is just incredible. Um, yeah, he actually, and he was very tough when it came to defending his work. Normally, actors wouldn't try to push him around. James Cagney tried to push him around with a movie I think is one of the greatest comedies ever made. And I swear to God, I had on iTunes, and I think they pulled it sometime around the invasion of Ukraine. There's a movie called 1, 2, 3, which is fantastic, and it's one of the most energetic comedies ever. It has sequences that just go for like 20 minutes, and it's just line after line after line. And Wilder sustains those notes. Well, anyway, Cagney starred in it, and Cagney, wanted to play fast and loose, and Wilder absolutely would not. And Cagney thought he could push this guy around. He was James Cagney, and Wilder was already at the zenith of his career, and Wilder was so tough with Cagney that it drove James Cagney, out of the business until he did Ragtime, 20 years later. Unbelievable. Yeah. Tough guy.
And 1, 2, 3 is available via the Internet Archive.
Oh, man. It's a great movie. I mean, have you ever seen it, Gordon?
No, I have not. I've heard a lot of it about it, but I've never. So Jack,
it has more energy and more life than anything that I have seen in a theater in the past 20 years. I mean, it is just a machine. And yet, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, it knows when to slow down just a little bit to let the audience catch its breath. And Cagney's fantastic. If Cagney just gotten past his own ego, he would have been great. Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Almost Famous, and Cameron Crowe, the guy who made those, great filmmaker and wonderful writer, did a book-length interview with Wilder towards the end of Wilder's life. And it's great. And it's a dense book. I mean, it was like the Hitchcock Truffaut thing. And Crowe just idolized him. And one of the things that came out that I thought was really interesting is that Wilder was up to direct Schindler's List that late into his life. I mean, Wilder lived to be forever. And so the early 90s, he was up to do Schindler's List. And Wilder had lost relatives in the Holocaust, and he escaped Austria and Germany when he saw Hitler, gaining momentum, and that's when he came to America, and so he had a lot invested in this, and it could be argued that at the time he was America's greatest living filmmaker. I think, even though he hadn't made a movie since Buddy Buddy in like 1980 or 81, he was America's greatest filmmaker. And even at that age, it would have been an amazing movie. But he knew that it was very important to Steven Spielberg, that he had already had a ton of success, helping to define the medium. And so he basically gave it to Spielberg, is my understanding. Just say, Steve, you've been doing this forever. You don't have an Oscar. You deserved one, 20 years ago. Here, take it. Do your own movie with it. I mean, that's sort of the guy he was.
Mm-hmm. The movie Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise actually wanted him to play his mentor in the movie, Jerry Maguire's mentor, and Billy Wilder's like, dude, me, not me, no. He said, I appreciate the offer.
So is that the Cuba Gooding part that he would have played?
No. There's a scene where there's this old elderly man talking about the rules of being a sports agent, and that's who Tom Cruise wanted Billy Wilder to play. That man was Tom Cruise's character's mentor. That's the role Tom Cruise wanted Billy Wilder to play because he's a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can't.
Even if it had been a lousy performance, it would have been beautiful to see. It really would have been.
It would have been.
Because he was this feisty little German, usually wearing a beret. Hilarious. But he could, he could pull it off, otherwise it would get in the way of things.
Yeah, you could say he was competent at wearing a beret.
Oh, okay. Joel, that was a wacky phrase. I'm sorry we're giving you a hard time, but
he's one of those.
Joseph Sargent is competent. Jeannot Swark is competent.
Look, usually
Henry Kaplan is competent.
Henry Kaplan's competent. Man, I'll tell you what, a Billy Wilder House of Dark Shadows would have been amazing. I mean, go watch Sunset Boulevard. That's just dripping with atmosphere. Yeah. And he would have had a lot of fun writing Willie Loomis and Barnabas. Just look what he does with Holmes and Watson here. Mm-hmm. And it's my favorite Watson. I think Colin Blakely steals the movie. As hysterical as he gets, and as easily furious as he gets, which is a little bit of a stretch for Watson. Watson's he's a war vet. He's not easily rattled. But if he is going to be easily rattled, let it be like Colin Blakely. And Blakely, Watson, has just, earlier in the movie, long before the climax, he has just the best summation shade that he casts on Holmes when he says, you think my imagination's running away with me? How is that possible when for years you've said, I have no imagination? And the movie cuts away because he's right. He's right. There is so much life in the exchanges that these guys have. And the dialogue after the Bolshoi ballet is not only a great two-hander between these actors, but it's so freaking funny, and yet I never quite at the expense of the reality and the drama. Lines like, "What if we get married?" Well, then they'd really talk. And Holmes, what are we going to do? Well, the first thing I do is get rid of that flower. It's classic. And then another scene. Is Mrs. Hudson entertaining? I've never found her to be.
Yeah, it's nonstop. Wilder was a noted Sherlockian. He this wasn't just a job for him. He loved the character, and and Diamond's script really shows in the script. It's not boring or stentorious, or it never feels like pompous like some Holmes adaptations do.
When you think of the sort of spirit of freedom and respectful freedom in the deconstructions that were going on in the 70s, this is a very underrated movie. To me, this is right up there with Little Big Man, which deconstructs the West, but and calls shenanigans on it, but it doesn't disrespect the struggles that the people had there and what they lived through. And this is that similar kind of, 1970, great reconstruction of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I like how when the woman, oh, I'd like you to be the father of my child, and he's like, well, I've been living, me and I, Watson, we've been living together for 5 years.
5 very happy years.
I'm very
Tchaikovsky
happy.
was not an isolated case.
Yeah, and he says it so like straight, and
Well,
like
the button on that gag, which is Watson doing the dance with the ballerinas facing the other way, and they're slowly replaced by the male ballet dancers, and Colin Blakely very slowly looking around like what happened, and his sense of denial that this is just it's literally unthinkable to him that someone would accuse him of that, much less set him up that way. Just great. That is an old soldier, responding. And he comes, he's going to kill Holmes. He's going to kill him.
Watson gets to the flat, he's like, he throws something at the pipe,
A paperweight, at the smoking mechanism.
Yeah.
And Wilder sets that gag up too really well with the specific sound of it, which I would like to think of as just a tired Leviathan. That's after a long day. That's about all Jeb can do. It's marvelous.
It's there, David, after a particularly nice steak.
Yes, it is.
Christopher Lee is also in this movie as Sherlock Holmes' brother. It's nice to see Christopher Lee in another movie.
Okay, so here's a big difference. Yes, between Christopher Lee and James Cagney, because they're so similar in so many ways, but that Lee respected Wilder enough not only to leave the dialogue long. Chris Lee was not a guy to change dialogue on someone. He said some pretty terrible dialogue with a straight face, but he goes without his toupee.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing for an actor to do. And Lee doesn't bat an eye.
No, he looks good.
He looks great. Yeah.
That's the thing about these characters, like, because this is, first of all, this is set like post Watson's death. Like, this almost at first, because I had just watched this for the first time today.
Uh-huh.
At first, I thought this was going to be some almost like a documentary in a weird way, and no, it necessarily wasn't. But in a sense, it was Watson's sort of memoirs and about
the other side of Watson's memoirs. Keep in mind, all of the Holmes stories are really Watson's recollections.
Yeah.
And even in the stories, there's always the reference to either cases that couldn't be reported on because of scandalous details, or there reference like the giant rat of Sumatra. Nobody know. There's no story involving the giant rat of Sumatra. Unless it's the guy who called me out in Sister Dulcian's third grade class for cheating on that one math test.
Indeed. I was in a conversation with someone the other night, and I proposed, thank God it was not taken seriously, I proposed the idea that the rats in New Orleans got so big that around Mardi Gras, they captured them, defanged them, put saddles on them, let the kids ride them in the Mardi Gras parades. I love that, because that actually seems like something they might try in New Orleans.
Or Nyolans.
Okay, I went to LSU, so I got the pronunciation, because it's a weird one, is New Orleans. New Orleans. Yeah, the weirdest, most inconsistent, and it's like London in that time. You go 2 blocks, and it's a completely different accent, just based on who had been living there forever. Really strange, but running into all the going from a city, or town in cities, a town just parish just a few miles away where everyone's speaking with some weird Southern drawl. They go to New Orleans, everybody sounds like they're from Brooklyn. It's crazy.
That's interesting. So this movie is about a lot of things. It's about he Holmes and Watson take this girl in because it looks like she almost drowned. And spoiler alert: this woman's actually a German spy. Um, a lot of a really great plot twist in this movie. Sherlock Holmes is investigating because he thinks the woman's husband has died. They do dig up the grave. There's these midgets in the movie that I love how Holmes says,
We can't say that. We can't say that.
"Why?"
It's not politically correct anymore.
Oh,
It is little people. But in the movie, they use and because it's a funny sounding word. It just there's something to the sound of it that's, and Holmes having lines like, that's not even a pound of midget when he's talking about being hired by the circus to track them down.
Yeah. They're there to
Joel's the one using the F word. It's all his fault.
Yes, I'm quoting.
He also thinks that Billy Wilder's competent. So.
Joel, this is love. I want you to know that. It really is.
Yeah, it's a love thing.
They're here to operate the submarine that the British have built,
which is brilliant. Right? When you have this enclosed space, it's like well, yeah. I mean, not only is it sort of a weird exotic plot element. I hate that people are reduced to a weird exotic plot element, but it makes sense. I mean, this is dwarfsploitation that actually makes sense. And for all I know, it sounds like something the Victorians would have tried. Because space
it's very Jules Vernean, if you think about it.
It is.
Yeah.
Captain Knee-High. Sorry.
Hey, I love the occasional Knee-High, especially the orange flavor. That's a great soda.
Speaking of sodas like that, that was Fanta, which is just basically Knee-High, was invented by the Nazis.
Yes, I knew that.
Yeah, and we got it. Like it's part of the reparations or something. We got the rights to Fanta, and we just took it and rebranded it. So it's like, take that, Nazis. Now people of all races and followings will be enjoying your soft drink, and there's nothing you can do. You have been reduced to your only cultural contribution are two things. A bad guy we can always abuse in movies and nobody cares, and soda pop.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hitler. Because I love that, because of how seriously they took themselves.
Yeah.
And that it's like, you want to see what your real cultural legacy is? Come with me to Vaughn's, to the soda aisle at Vaughn's, and that's it. Oh, look, it's Jews and people of color enjoying your soda. That's what you've been reduced to, and we're all real thankful.
Yeah.
Assholes.
So I gotta ask.
Nazis ruin everything.
Pardon?
Yeah.
I said Nazis ruin everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but except for the soda aisle.
Right.
And we're the ones making the profit from it.
I gotta ask you guys this. What's the difference between the movie and the novel?
There is no novel. There's a novelization of Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, but there's no novel per se. It kind of takes pieces from the stories, like there's a reference to the Greek Interpreter, the I think it's like the Big Dog of Baskerville. That's my favorite novel. The Big Dog of Baskerville.
This is our favorite book, Big Dog of Baskerville.
Yeah.
I still think that Dark Shadows should have seriously adapted that for one of their plot lines.
Except the Hound of Baskervilles?
Yes, except the Hound is a werewolf.
Well, I mean, seriously, you could do something with that. But imagine that if they did Hound of the Baskervilles, imagine under the live on tape way of making Dark Shadows of handling canine actors. What a nightmare!
Well, you wouldn't use a real dog. You'd have Alex Stevens.
I'm just saying. if they had done a literal adaptation, just what a nightmare having. I mean, I'm sure that cat was heavily drugged that Joshua turns into. I mean, because there's no other way. I mean, I imagine Leela Swift and who the education of Hyman Kaplan, who was Henry Kaplan. Leela Swift and Henry Kaplan looked at whoever it was, Caldwell and Sproat and those guys, and said, "A cat, really? You can't have him turn into a paperweight or something. It has to be the most difficult to handle. And when you make him into a pubescent chimp while you're at it, and hope that Joan Bennett doesn't get her face eaten on live television."
Yeah,
I mean,
but you know, at some point, like Sproat or Caldwell said, "Hey, blame Kaplan. He keeps doing that transition, and he's getting on everyone's nerves. That bastard deserved it."
That's can you imagine that's what it was? It was this revenge on Henry Kaplan, and Curtis doesn't care. He's like, "Yeah, cat sounds great." Curtis doesn't care. Just make it happen.
George DiCenzo went for producing acting after Dark Shadows.
It was that darn cat with Grayson Hall.
Yeah.
I do have a question about Dan Curtis. When did he get golf on television? Because I know he was big into that.
Probably, I mean, late 50s, early 60s. It was not too far away from when Dark Shadows was, because he was, made a big honcho in daytime programming, which is, talk about business as usual. Think about the guys who are actually good at daytime programming, who had been working their way up. It had to be like Kirk showing up on Pike's Enterprise in Star Trek 09, suddenly becoming the captain when you have all of these other officers who were in line to do it, and it's like him. Okay, Chris, have a good time over on that ship.
I do have a question for you guys. What's you guys' favorite Sherlock Holmes story?
Like written story?
Yeah.
I mean, for sentimental reason, I have Final Problem for me. That's the Reichenbach Falls one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for sentimental reasons, that one. I would do readings of that for people at libraries and things for a long time, and it's a favorite. It's so sad necessarily, and it's much more focused on character than mystery. But in terms of like either Second Stain or Naval Treaty, I like both of those a lot. They're just good, tight, interesting, thoughtful, brainy stories. Gordon, but you're the Sherlock guy. What about you?
Let's see. Well, I'm very partial to A Study in Scarlet, which is there's a scandal in Bohemia, which is interesting because it's not the story that people think it is. Let's see. I'm trying to.
Good evening, Mr. Holmes. That great line.
Right. I think I would also say, something like the Bruce Partington plans, which is kind of a very clever Sherlock Holmes goes spy. I also like the Case of Charles Augustus. Yeah, that's a Christmas Story. There's I think it's called The Case of Charles Augustus Milverton, in which we learn that Sherlock Holmes don't like blackmailers.
No.
He has the same opinion of blackmailers that Jewel does to the movie Halloween Ends. He just does not like them at all.
Yeah, I mean, so many of these stories are really good. I'm not a big fan of the novels. I know I should be, but
it's understandable because, like, of all the novels, only The Hound of the Baskervilles is really a kind of novel in and of itself, because you've got the other three are basically, the first half is Holmes mystery, Holmes solves the mystery, and the second half is like the stuff that led up to the events that Sherlock Holmes did. I mean, it's like Conan Doyle wanted to write historical romances. He didn't want to write, Sherlock Holmes was the thing he did for beer money. I mean, he started them because he was bored in his doctor's office and was like, sure, I'll just crank these out. And And he could not understand why people kept saying more Holmes, when he's like, I can, imagine if Dan Curtis in 68 was like, I just can't do Dark Shadows anymore, instead of like, and once Doyle said, okay, 1895, he kills off Holmes. Final problem. And people kept going, oh, you should do more Sherlock Holmes, man. And he's like, read The White Company. It's a better novel. Nobody's read The White Company. I haven't read The White Company. And it's not until 1910. So he does some Holmes stuff between 05 and like early World War I. Then he invents Professor Challenger, which is an interesting character who I have. If you read the Challenger Chronicles out by Airship 27 Press, I have a whole essay in which I talk about Professor Challenger. Go find it on Amazon. But that's kind of like his. He also does a series involving a character named Brigadier Gerard, who's basically he's part of Napoleon's army, but he thinks he's the big shot, and they're basically comedy stories. But no, it's Conan Doyle. They're well written stories, but Conan Doyle always had a love-hate relationship with Holmes. It's like Holmes brought him the acclaim, but he didn't want the acclaim that Holmes brought him. He wanted to be noted as a serious writer.
That makes me really think about that period in England, after Final Problem, and how wonderful that the public should be that outraged at the death and removal of a character. When people say, oh, it's just a movie or whatever, I think that's a very easy and casual and snobby dismissal. I think that the right fictional character at the right time that's just tapping into something essential in the zeitgeist is a strengthening and nourishing thing. And when you think about Victorian England, such an amazing period, such a powerhouse in so many ways, but it was just also this colossal, bloodthirsty bully in the world, that just did terrible things, and that who should the English cling to as this figure of identity and who they wanted to be and who they wanted to see themselves as? Sherlock Holmes is just great. He's not a military, bully. He's completely different. And that says something really nice about people, that this is the guy that they chose to love and immortalize. And a movie like this, I think, really taps into that. Just that spirit. I think the Victorians would have gone crazy for this movie. If they didn't go out and stone Billy Wilder for the homosexuality implications. Because, keep in mind, it was around, because he wrote boxing novels, right?
Yes.
Well, the thing got Oscar Wilde thrown in the meanest prison on earth. I mean, this thing that made Dartmoor just look like a country club, Reading Jail. Well, he got thrown in there because he was having an affair with the son of the man who basically invented modern boxing. And yes, they were tough on that stuff. And I'll tell you what, because everyone thinks of Wilde as this little willowy guy. And I can get away with mentioning Wilde because he's an important character in the West End Horror, which is the sequel to the 7% Solution by Nicholas Meyer. Wilde was actually a big, tough Irishman. He could play this part, but he was a father, he had kids, and, for all of his, aesthete kind of stuff and, wearing the little pants and so on and so forth, he was also a big, tough Irishman. And it took a big, tough, mean son of a bitch Irishman to survive Reading Jail, which he did, and nobody did. People, you got sent to Reading Jail, it was basically a death sentence. Not Oscar Wilde.
For this film, elaborate sets were built on the back lot at Pinewood Studios, including the 150 yards of the Baker Street set at a cost of 80,000 pounds. The reproduction of the Diogenes Club, Diogenes Club stood until 1973, having been used in other films such as Hands of the Ripper and Carry On at Your Own Convenience.
I love it as in a Carry On movie.
The sets were designed.
Well, Frank Thornton, the guy at the one-armed guy at the Diogenes Club, who lets them in, was also Captain Peacock on Are You Being Served, the classic British TV series.
Really?
You know, I would love to watch Jewel watch the Carry On movies.
I don't think he would. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if he would get the Carry On movies for their sophisticated humor.
Now, okay, Gordon's pulling your leg. The Carry On movies are some of the most base, tasteless, just sex comedy movies ever made, where the joke is a woman's bra flying off. Like, that's the joke. That's it.
It's the kind of humor that would make Benny Hill go, dude, literally, restraint, seriously.
Yeah, Benny Hill was the classy step up from Carry On, which makes me love them even more. I got to be in London for one of the Carry On anniversaries. And it was nice because after having denied, the kind of the cultural importance of the Carry On movies, they finally were like, okay, yeah, they're kind of part of our culture. We need to acknowledge them. And they did really well. Barbara Windsor was on TV a lot, and it was cool.
The scenes set in Scotland were actually filmed on location. So there's that. Really, really cool. The cemetery scene with Stanley Holloway was filmed at the Church of St. Mary, Winkfield in Berkshire, Somerset House in London, and the London Coliseum were also used as locations. Castle Stuart and Donian Castle in Scotland and Broadway Tower in Worcestershire made fleeting appearance. Worcester. Sorry.
Worcestershire. Yeah. Yeah.
But when did you guys first see this movie? I know when I first saw it today.
I first saw it. I think I actually saw it in my late 20s, early 30s, because I had found the DVD at Big Lots, which is like the next step. It's the lowest you could go before Dollar Tree came around. And so I had heard about it because when you're the what?
Don't buy the sushi. Don't buy the sushi at Big Lots.
Oh, I never bought the sushi. Well, if you knew sushi like I knew sushi. Anyway, and so I had heard of it and I watched it and I enjoyed it. And it's one of those movies that I like to come back to occasionally because it is it's fun. It's Robert Stevens is the right mix of intellectual and bitchy.
He really is. He really is. And he's a Holmes that you can accept as, probably being gay for a big stretch of the movie. And then when he starts to describe his history and, Holmes's engagement and all of that, you also buy that. I mean, he's a really fine stage actor. Really good.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed this movie from start to finish because the sets look really good. The Baker Street set looks amazing. I love the little street cleaner scene they have where the cop jumps up to avoid the water. And I love how that you have some spy stuff in this movie going on too, obviously, which is really cool. How the woman is signaling with the umbrella. I love how too that Christopher Lee in this movie, he's sort of, because he's playing Holmes' brother, is sort of getting, you think he's got one up on his brother, and then Holmes tells him, I guess we've been both outclassed by women today. it's like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Joel, it makes me really happy. It makes me really happy that you enjoyed this movie because when when you said that, I weren't necessarily the biggest Holmes fan, I just thought maybe it's because you haven't seen the right Sherlock Holmes stuff. And so what I would prescribe, and what I would love to do, I don't want to push too much these on you guys, but there are two more movies that sort of are Holmes revisionist films that I think are really good. And I'm going to lightly suggest that we look at both of them because they're just crackers. They're great. One is 7% Solution. Well, actually, there are three that are really great. There's 7% Solution, Murder by Decree, which is, God, it's Sherlock Holmes against Jack the Ripper and British governmental corruption. And it's James Mason as Watson, who's amazing, and Christopher Plummer as Holmes, who's definitive, right, as good as any of the others. But then the third one, which kind of rounds it out, is a movie I like a lot, which was filmed under the title Sherlock and Me, but it was released as a movie Without a Clue, which is a light comedy, but it's got excitement and it's got heart, and it's the sort of movie, it's a mid-budget comedy, well done, and Hollywood just doesn't do them anymore. And it's Ben Kingsley as a Watson no one can believe is actually the brains behind it. And so he kind of invents and elevates the Sherlock Holmes character, that he gets the sleazy actor played by Michael Caine to play. It's like a comedy version of the middle act of that Christopher Nolan movie with the magicians, The Prestige. This is what they do with Root in The Prestige, trying to pass him off and how impossible he is to control. But Michael Caine, did I say Michael Jackson? Michael Caine really evolves as the Holmes character as the movie goes on. And God bless it, Ben Kingsley's hilarious. He's even funnier than he was in Gandhi.
And let me add a fourth movie, which is more of a pastiche than a straightforward Holmes adaptation. It came out in '98, and it's worth tracking down. It's called The Zero Effect, which
I've never heard of it. What is it?
It's Bill Pullman, and it's Bill Pullman as a modern day LA Sherlock Holmes, but under the name of Darrow Zero. It's got Ben Stiller is his Watson, and it's I think it's the first starring role for Kim Dickens. It's worth checking out.
I would love to. I mean, I would enjoy looking at all of these movies. And Jewel, the reason I throw them out there is that I think you would really enjoy them. I think, if you had fun with this, you would have fun with the others. And they're a good mix of, I haven't seen the Pullman picture, but the other three are wonderful, and they're good home stories, and they're completely different from each other. You've got broad comedy and this sort of tongue-in-cheek psychological thriller, and then a pretty serious, grim, but occasionally very witty Murder by Decree, Jack the Ripper film. They're great.
Yeah. I'll check out anything. I mean, whatever film you guys want to do next, we'll do. No problem. So
let's stick with the theme for a little bit.
Okay.
Because these are fun. These are movies just to get me excited to go back and rewatch them. And I rewatch Private Life probably about once a year because it's a fun movie. It's one of those movies that's fallen into obscurity because it's not one of the major Wilder films by its reputation, but it's so good. It's one of his best films. And it's so you can watch it as a film fan, as a Billy Wilder fan, or as a Sherlock Holmes fan. And it's a fun movie to introduce people to. It's like The Fall or Kung Fu Hustle. It's just, you want a good movie? Come on over, watch this one.
What's the first Billy Wilder movie you guys saw?
As a Billy Wilder film, I'd probably seen parts of others before, but Some Like It Hot. I was about 13.
Yeah, Some Like It Hot, and I would say followed by Double Indemnity.
Yeah. The first movie I saw was Style Like 17.
That's another good one.
He doesn't make a bad movie.
Yeah. Then Double Indemnity was I actually own Double Indemnity on DVD. Great movie.
It is a great movie.
Really, really fun to watch. Then Sunset Boulevard was just holy shit.
My experience with Sunset Boulevard was the guy who kind of was my mentor growing up brought it over. And he just said I'd heard of it, and I knew that it had some creepy stuff in it. I knew about, I'm ready for my close-up, that sort of thing. But I'd never seen it. I was probably about 16, 17, 18. And I mean, I liked older films, but you say classic, and I'm gonna, get a pillow and a blanket. And I remember watching Sunset Boulevard, and this thought occurred to me, and I leveled up while I watched it as a film viewer, because I thought, you know what? Films that are called classics are called them for a reason. They're really good. And certainly this is one of them.
What Holmes movie do you guys want to do next? I'll let you get, because
chronologically, I would say 7% Solution. If we're looking at the making of it, Gordon, is that okay with you?
It's fine with me. I've got it on Blu-ray. So,
where is it streaming?
I know it's streaming on Amazon at the very least. I don't know where else. Okay. So you might have to do digging, and you might be able to find a dubiously legal copy via YouTube.
Yeah, that works for me.
I mean, like I own Zero Effects, but I know it's also a very hard film to find streaming anywhere. So, thanks streaming providers for thanks for pulling 1, 2, 3 as well.
They did that. I really think they did that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I used to show it to classes, and I went to show it to somebody one day, and it was gone.
Folks, this is why physical media matters.
It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why I own the Coffin box set. See? So does Patrick. Gordon, you got the Coffin box set, right?
No, I don't.
Somebody gift that man the Coffin box set.
I'm sure he would be happy to take
it. Just for everyone, what Joel just recommended, my birthday's March 6th. Okay, so I'm also planning. My official party will be the Rocks Geek show on that Friday at the Newport Theater. So I expect there to be rioting, and I will be enjoying a variety of beverages, and I may even engage in attempts of verbal interplay with at least their MC, if not one of their performers. So
if you get a chance, you might have to make it yourself. That is worth it. Wallace McBride's Barnabas Collins cocktail is outstanding. You can no longer find Merlot flavored vodka. Okay, so what? Just get, a good sort of cherry infused vodka or something. Wow. It is a marvelous beverage. I've never gotten schnockered of it, but I've made a number of interesting decisions with utter clarity.
Like appearing on this podcast?
I haven't caught up yet, but I may make one tonight. That sounds like a pretty good idea.
Is there anything you guys want to add about the movie?
It's such a treat. It's just, and it's got the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah,
that sort of. Cool. And the you mentioned the locations in Scotland. And, they're the locations people always go to. But then there are these weird castles that have a tiny footprint. And that, just buildings that you don't think would ever exist. And they do. And it shows it off. And one of the things Wilder is good at that I don't think gets enough credit is he's very good at portraying regions and countries and cities. And just like he does for Los Angeles, and basically inventing Los Angeles Gothic with Sunset Boulevard. Just your recitation of the different locations they used and locations they created. He's just for a blackly cynical guy. you can only be that cynical if you love things. If you really, really, really love them, because you have something that you're in mourning for and that you can bounce off of. Somebody who loves everything is just like, whatever. I don't trust them. So,
The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, straight 10 for me, guys. Really a fun watch. It's funny.
No question.
It has a great mystery to it, which is mark of any good Sherlock Holmes story so far. What do you guys give it before we go?
10 out of 10.
Yeah, like an 11. It's fantastic. It's I am sorry that it's so underseen, but I'm also sort of glad because pop culture recollection hasn't ruined it. There's a good hour-long interview on YouTube with Quentin Tarantino about the movie that's worth looking up.
I'll go find it. If I find it, I'll leave a link in the description box.
It's easy to find with Tarantino Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, I'll go search for it when we're done here.
And so, Joel, would you still say that Billy Wilder is competent?
Oh, no, you're
1,000%.
Okay.
1,000%.
You're a good guy, Joel.
He really is. He's one of the best directors that don't get mentioned enough. I mean, the guy made wonderful movies and fun movies. At the end of the day, a movie should entertain you, and that's what all his movies do.
Every Billy Wilder movie entertains, yeah. You actually raised an interesting question about why isn't Billy Wilder talked about more as a filmmaker. His films are talked about, but him as the guy who made them isn't talked about as much. And I think he's just really challenging. Mm-hmm. I think people are afraid that if they met Billy Wilder, he would have made fun of them or something. And I don't think that's the case, but there is that edge that exists in all of them.
Well, I think with Wilder, for him, it was about the work. Like with Hitchcock, he could play up that public image because he knew that part of why people wanted to see his movies was because he was just a weird guy. And I think Wilder was much more of a, he didn't care about how people perceived him. He was about, I'm doing this film, I'm doing the best that I can. And, I think the films are where you learn about.
He was
you know what I mean?
Yeah. He was a really great visual filmmaker. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Look at how he sets up the dancing sequence in Private Life, or even the Watson going up and attacking Holmes right after it. Visually, it's just very sophisticated. They lead the audience in a very sophisticated way. But, there are times when you watch a Hitchcock movie, so much of it, and it's like, okay, this is Hitchcock giving us the Hitchcock shots. This is John Ford, and he's giving us our desert shots, and so on. And any of those movies, Billy Wilder could have made just as well. It would have been different. Wilder's spectacle, the places where he always gets out of the way of the movies, but you can also always tell a Billy Wilder movie, but you have to listen, because it's really his signature stuff is in the dialogue. And to have such a capable, intelligent visual filmmaker also provide the dialogue and the voice and the stories that contain those, because all his dialogue is about great little reversals of expectations and observations, and the stories are just larger machines for that. I think really interesting. I would love to live in an alternate universe. We could go back and see, The Searchers as made by Billy Wilder, because he could. I mean, if he could do Double Indemnity, he can do a dark story like The Searchers, or Vertigo, or anything like that. I think a Billy Wilder Vertigo would have been jaw-dropping. It would have been Jack Lemmon, but Jack Lemmon would have been amazing in the movie. Mm-hmm. Better than Jimmy Stewart, and I love Jimmy Stewart in that film, but. Man, Lemmon in that. Ooh. It's a good movie.
Jack Lemmon was a hell of an actor. Guys, this was a fun talk. Is there anything you want to add about the movie before we go?
Nope.
No, it's just it's nice to talk about something that is so easy to love. It really is.
And for those of you watching, go to tubetv.com, search Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. It's a little over 2 hours. It's the best time you could spend.
It really is. It's a gift to yourself. You'll love it.
I watched the first hour and a half of this earlier than I watched the rest of it, like 3 hours before we came on. Great movie. Fun watch.
Did anybody watch it with you? Any of your kids watch any of it with you? Or
no?
So
my
it was your
daughter
solitary vice.
come in the kitchen and asked me what I was watching, and she saw the fake Loch Ness monster. She goes, "Dad, is that a robot?"
Sort of. Yeah, sort of.
Sort of. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. When your kids ask you a question, it's like, Dad, what is that?
Show your daughter a movie called Incident at Loch Ness. Have you seen it?
No, but here's the thing.
Look it up.
My daughter has seen the original Alien, and every time she watches it, she goes, "You know what I love most, Dad?" I was like, "What's that?" She goes, "I love the creature's tail. It's so gorgeous." Just like,
well, it is. I mean, H.R. Giger, it's the only movie I know of where you have a beautiful piece of modern sculpture as the villain, and it works.
But yeah, this is a fun watch. Is tomorrow night good for you guys for the next Sherlock Holmes movie we're doing?
I would enjoy it.
Yep, I'm good.
10th, I'll see these gentlemen at 10:30 tomorrow night. If you need a different time, please message me, guys. There'll be no problem. So another Sherlock Holmes movie tomorrow night. We're gonna have some fun. Links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. Link to Patrick McCray's The Dark Shadows Day Book Unbound is going to be in the description box. Go pick that up if you haven't already. Guys, I'll see you tomorrow night.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Good night.